it's Miss Angela with another program to go. I am a programmer at the East Regional Library, and today our program is going to be Mermania. And today, the first of the two projects that we're going to do is the painted rock that has the mermaid scales on it. So we are first going to look at what you need in the bag. So we have your two blue paints that you'll need, your rock, a paintbrush, and at home you're going to need a couple things too. You're going to need something to put your rock on. I just so happen to have a paper plate to use. Some napkins, because you are going to need to dry your paintbrush off while you're in between colors, and some water to help rinse your paintbrush off. So let's go ahead and start with our first step. Now with this project, you have two sides to your rock. I already painted one side of my rock, and I'm going to go ahead and paint the second side because we do have to wait so that the paint doesn't just get all over your paper plate. Let's open up our paints. I'm going to start with the light blue. Now, you don't need to use tons and tons and tons of the paint, just because the longer, the more paint you use, the longer that the paint is going to take. You want to have a decent coat so that it covers up, but you also don't want to have it to where you have any big globs of paint. And also, since we're trying to kind of make something similar to a water effect, having some streaks like maybe the ocean might have would be a really cool thing to do. Let's see. So while I'm painting, we're going to talk about our reading program is still going on. So you're going to read the 360 minutes of anything that you would like to read. That includes books, magazines, graphic novels, anything that makes you happy, you can read. And you are, once you reach that 360 minutes, you're entered for a grand prize based on your age. So everyone can participate. Grown-ups, children, teenagers, tweens, everybody's welcome. All right, so now that I have that light blue, I'm going to rinse off. And this paint may take a little bit of wiggling. Since I have ribs on my cup, I'm kind of using that a little bit to help me get the paint out of my brush. And you kind of want to do this as quick as you can, just because you want to be able to kind of mix these two colors together. So we're going to start with just a teensy tiny bit. I want to make sure my brush is nice and dry, of the darker blue paint. And I'm going to kind of streak it a little bit across through the light blue so that it kind of makes water. And I'm going to show you exactly what it looks like once I've gotten it over. And if you want to start at the edges and work toward the middle, just making straight lines both ways. And you can see a little bit of the effect that it has. And you can make it as dark on the blue as you want, and then that's going to just add a little extra depth to your rock. So mine's going to be a little bit darker than the first one that we painted, but every rock is going to look a little bit different, and that's the fun with art, is everything can be exactly how you want it to turn out. All right, so that is done. I'm going to rub the paint and clean the paint off because we are going to need our brush for the other side. I'm only going to finish this one side, but you get the idea. You can finish your second side after this side dries. All right, my paintbrush is nice and clean. I'm going to go ahead and dab it on my paper towels, and I can see that the water comes away nice and clean, so I know my paintbrush is ready for our next layer. I'm going to let it dry. While we let our rock dry, let's check out what's still in your bag. All right, everyone. I'm Miss Angela with the East Regional Library. This is our program to go Mermania. So we're going to look and double check what's left in our bag. We're going to make some slime. I'm going to show you what it's going to look like out of the bag. So he's got glitter, and he's a really pretty turquoise color. So that'll be a lot of fun. So I'm going to show us how to make it after I seal it back up. All right. So in your bag, we're going to see what's left over. We have glue, that's clear. We have a little pod that has baking soda and glitter. We're going to have coloring and saline solution. That should be, both of the glue and that should be in a bag. I just already took them out. What you will need at home is a bowl to mix it in, a spoon that's a little bit heavier than just a plastic spoon. I'm gonna have napkins just in case, and you're gonna need some water. You're gonna need half a cup of water. So let's get started. You're gonna open your glue. Take the tape off and put him to the side. All right. You're gonna use your spoon, and you're going to first use your glue into the bowl. You're going to scoop out as much of the glue as you can from the cup. And you're going to hang on to this cup because we are going to end up using it in just a teeny tiny bit. Pretty much all of the glue. Then you're going to open your, I'm going to make sure I hold it over the glue because that way if it spills it's already going to go where it needs to go anyway. You're going to take your glitter and your baking soda. You're going to tap all of that out. You're going to mix that into the glue. Okay, now our next step is going to be to add a half a cup of water. Now this cup is 5 ounces, so I'm going to fill it up. And since the glue's already in the mixture, it should be fine. You're gonna leave just a little space at the top. I used about the width of my pinky finger. You're going to mix the water in. I'm going to try to make sure it incorporates with the glue. And then we're going to start. I want to bring this over because I see that it's got a lot of color. Napkins are a good thing to have on hand. All right, so I'm going to, a little bit at a time, take some of the saline solution and bring it and mix it in. And this is gonna help it start to goop together. So you may need to use the side of your bowl to help get the glue off. And you may have to get your hands just a little bit. I'm gonna do 2 this time but you don't want to pour it all in because you kind of need it to mix with the glue, and that's going to help start to stick everything together. Keep stirring. And you should start to see that it's starting to gloop together. I'm gonna just add a teeny tiny little bit more and go from there. Now, if you have a bigger bowl, that might be a good idea, just because you want to make sure that you have enough room to mix everything. So I'm having to be just a teeny tiny bit careful because my bowl's not super big. All right, I'm gonna add another little gloop. You should see the mixture kind of keep looping into stuff. And you may have to mix it for a little bit for the reaction to keep taking place. And eventually he should start to separate from the bowl. There we go. Now he's starting to separate. All right, so now it says that we are going to take this out and continue to knead it. So I'm going to put my spoon there. Gonna grab him. Work him. You can see he's a little sticky. Pull it away from the bowl again. But he shouldn't leave any color. There you go. That was just a little extra saline that it needed to stick all together. And he's going to be stretchy, so I didn't add too much extra saline. Let me use this to pick up stuff that's on the table. That's the cool thing about slime, is it does kind of collect itself once it gets sticky. And then you can just continue to knead it once I can separate it from the bowl. I don't think the styrofoam bowl is the perfect material to use. So if you have something different at home, that is definitely what I would recommend. So that is our mermaid slime, and it looks like that one had more food coloring, so it must have had a little bit more saline. So that is the rest of the slime. So we are just finishing putting this in the bag. We are going to push all the air out because you want him to stay slimy. If he gets too dry, he's not going to stretch. He's not going to be as much fun. So you're going to make sure to zip him nice and tight. Squish all the air out, and he is ready to go for weeks of fun. We're going to pick our rock back up. So I have my water. Now in the bag, you should find Mod Podge. Looks kind of like glue. You're gonna need your paintbrush that's nice and dry, a silver marker, and that is what you're going to use to make the scales for your mermaid rock. All right, so this is how my rock turned out once I fixed him. We're gonna take a closer look. Now we can get started on our scales that are going to help make it a mermaid. So I'm going to show you how to draw those in a dark marker, and then we're going to put them on the rock. So you're gonna start out, and I'm actually gonna do it on the curve of the plate, kind of like it would be on the curve of the rock. You'd make some loops. So that's like your first layer of scales. Now you're going to start out your second layer of scales in between the two scales, and then you just continue down. All right, so after your second row, you're going to start on your third row. You are going to put one of your scales in between, and then I try to make them loop to where, because scales move, so you kind of have them off centered from the other scales because they need to be able to shift as the animal moves or as your mermaid moves. You can make your scales long and narrow. You can make your scales short and wide. It's up to you what makes you happy. That's why art is so fun. So you're just going to kind of continue the same pattern on your scales. If you want to take a few minutes and practice before you put it on your rock, that's always a good option. The thing about scales is a lot of the times, even though they're kind of a pattern, they're not always perfect. So they don't have to run perfectly. All right, so now I'm going to take my silver. I'm going to keep him on the plate, or if you want to bring him closer to you, I'm going to put him on the plate just because it's easier to see, with it being the blue and the white. I'm going to start at the top. Make 3 loops, and you can kind of make them a little bit higher since scales grow up. I'm going to go in between 2 of the scales like that. And then on the edges, you may need to kind of draw the scales that are on the edge. The silver and the blue look super, super cool. I'm really liking the way that the stripes on my rock came out. He came out super cool. Right. So you're just going to continue that pattern. I bet you all have been reading some awesome books this summer to get your 360 minutes. I hope mom and dad are reading, or grandma and grandpa, or whoever you're with are reading too. It's a lot of fun to get to escape to a new world or a different time. Sometimes I like to read books about history. I'm going to show you what it looks like after this particular row. You want to make sure that your agate, your rock, I'm so used to doing my shaker times. You're going to see that your rock has your scales, and you're just going to continue kind of that pattern until it gets too hard to continue, with it being too little space on the rock. All right, so that looks like all my scales are drawn. So if you're going to decorate both sides, you would just do the same exact thing on the opposite side of your rock. Now, to make sure everything stays put, we're going to add some Mod Podge. Now this is kind of like the paint that you had used before. You don't need a lot, or else the only thing that's going to happen is just it takes a super long time to dry. So you're going to make sure that your paintbrush is nice and clean. You're going to have rinsed it off. It's nice and dry. And you're going to take some Mod Podge on your brush, and then I just tried to put it a thin layer across. Try not to let the edges get too much, because sometimes it'll get clumpy, and you want to make sure that you seal up everything that you want to stay put. So you want to make sure that you get your edges really well. Now if you see a little bit of paint come off, that's okay, but it shouldn't be a lot. Your rock should be pretty solidly dry by the time that you do this step. So you just I like brushing the strokes the same way, just because it kind of creates a uniform look when you are finished with your rock. Instead of seeing a bunch of different types of strokes on the rock, you'll only see the one way. And then we're going to take a second to let it dry. It shouldn't take very long because you didn't use too much Mod Podge. If you want to wave it with your hand. We're going to let him continue to dry. When it's finished, you should have, it kind of looks like a layer of gloss, almost a little bit of shimmer, but it shouldn't be white. It's going to dry clear. And then see, you can kind of see on my edges, I put a little bit too much paint on the edges, and I didn't a little bit too much Mod Podge on the edges, and I didn't quite spread it out. So I'm going to go ahead and try to spread a little bit of that out now. I think it looks that way to me too, just because of the color difference between the two sides of my rock. But that is your mermaid rock. So that is all done. All right, welcome to part 3 of Mermania. I am Miss Angela. It looks like we had some extra items in our bag. So let's check out what we have, and then I'm going to show you what we're going to make with it. You should have a foil wrapped on a cardboard. You should have a little bag with a marker and a little scratcher tool. I think it's called a dowel. And we're going to be making an underwater picture. So you can kind of see if he goes back and forth, he's on the foil. So we're going to draw some sea creatures and go from there. So we're going to start by, your board should be taped. So we're going to untape one side, and then we're going to unwrap it. We're going to lay our cardboard, and we're going to get our scratching tool. Let's get started drawing our first character. All right, so I think a little fish is going to be super cute, so we're going to get started. I like to make a little fish, making a big loop, and then I just draw a flat little thing by his tail. So I'm going to kind of go over it a couple of times. That way we can see him on the other side, it on the other side. So you're going to draw your whole fish, and then you can draw his little eye. And we're going to take a closer look to show you what it's going to look like when you've scratched your first picture. All right, now that we've seen our first fish, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a second fish. While I'm drawing, remember we're still doing our summer reading program. If you haven't signed up yet, you can sign up. You can record your 360 minutes that you are reading, and you can be entered for prizes. Everybody in the family can participate. So I finished my second little fish. I am going to draw some seaweed, which I'm gonna just make some little wiggles. Kind of crinkled up a little bit. That happens with the foil though. And everybody in the family can be entered in for the grand prize once they've finished reading their 360 minutes, which is really only 6 hours. Let's see. All right, one more seaweed, and the seaweed can kind of be different lengths and shapes. You can draw any sea animal or creature or anything in the sea that you are comfortable drawing. So I have some seaweed, and then I am going to draw a little crab, and then that's going to be my last picture for my picture. But you can make it as detailed as you like. Now, everybody received one color in your I was flipping him over so I could see exactly where my crab's legs needed to go so he wasn't upside down in my picture. Just got my train of thought back. You have received one color, and if you have extra markers at home, you can feel free to add as many colors as you want. To your picture. All right, so those are all my little sea items that I'm gonna draw. So then you are going to get your foil wrapped back around. We're going to try to be as gentle as possible. The foil sometimes gets a little bit tough to keep together because it's foil. It kind of can rip sometimes. And then what you're going to do is take a closer look of the scratches before we color. So now you've seen what it looks like once it's drawn on the foil. It's a little bit easier to see at home, so we understand if the picture's a little hard to see. We're going to go ahead and we're going to color one of the fish and then show you a closer look of what that is going to look like. If you can, I am going to try to avoid dragging my hand through any of the marker. So you just kind of follow the outline of what you made with the scratcher. And like in the eye of the fish, I'm going to leave the eye of the fish empty where I scratched. Now these are going to take just a little moment to dry once you've colored. So I would say try to start working on one side so that you can avoid mixing any colors on your fish. All right, it looks like my first fish is done, so we're going to go ahead and take that closer look. All right, now that we've seen our colored in fish, I'm going to use some library magic to finish coloring my picture, and we're going to meet you back with my final product. All right, I just finished coloring my final item on my picture. Now I ended up adding a couple of bubbles, if you might see in the corner, and we're gonna take a closer look in just a second. I added some bubbles just because that spot was looking a little bit lonely. So that's my final product. Let's go ahead and take that closer look. Alright, so we can watch our little ocean scene come to life by moving the foil back and forth, and it looks like the water rippling through the ocean. It's pretty cool. So we hope you enjoy all of your mermaid crafts, your rock, and your slimy slime, which was super yucky and fun to make. We are so glad you joined us. Keep an eye out for our last few weeks of summer reading, and we look forward to seeing you soon.